Om Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviyam Karvavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So we will continue with where we left off, the 23rd verse today. So we'll chant. Please unmute yourself. Satvabhasika kichit kuvetara
Satvabhasika
Sattaya hi chittaya yaham. So sattva bhasika chit kva vetara sattaya hi chittaya hi aham. The word breakups. And sattva bhasika. So he says kva itara. So that is the last part of the first line, second word. Kva itara. Where is that other thing which is sattva bhasika, which can illuminate sat, that is the existence principle. And other thing means what thing? What other thing other than chit? So where is that other thing which is different from chit, which can illumine the sat or the existence principle? And why is that so? He gives the answer. Sattaya hi chit. Sat itself is chit. The existence principle itself is the consciousness principle. And chit, chittaya aham. That consciousness principle, who is that? That is, I am that consciousness principle. So effectively, he is saying that to illumine the existence principle, there is no need of anything other than the consciousness principle. That consciousness principle is me alone. So here is the proper definition of Atma as Sat and Chit. So we have often said Sat and Chit is Atma, right? Sat Chit Ananda we say. And therefore a question can be raised. Why do we say Sat and Chit? Is it that there is a Chit which is different from Sat? Or Sat is different from Chit? Are there different aspects to it? Or is it one and the same thing? So this is what he is saying. Chit Sattaya hi bhavati. Consciousness is, what is the nature of consciousness? Sattaya hi. That consciousness is nothing but pure existence alone. The nature of consciousness is pure existence. And you have to supply what he has not said. The nature of existence is pure consciousness. These two things we have to constantly remember to understand Vedanta. Consciousness is in the form of existence. Existence is in the form of consciousness. And therefore, Sattaya hi chit. Sat itself is chit. Chit itself is Sat. This is the very soaring heights of Vedanta, the very top of the Vedantic pyramid. If you understand that Sat and Chit are the same, and they are just different names for the same entity, Atma, there is nothing more to understand. And he gives these two words to explain that Sat is itself a definition of Atma as pure existence principle, and Chit is a definition of Atma as the pure consciousness principle. The words are two, but the substance is one. Just like I am called father by my daughter and son by my mother. So what is being said, that plurality of names, multiplicity of names should not be taken to mean plurality of entity or substance. Both Sat and Chit refer to the same entity, Atma itself. Once this fact is understood, we have reached the end of our spiritual journey. And after understanding that Sat and Chit are the same, there is one more step, and that is a Chittaya Aham. That Sat and that Chit principle is I alone, is me alone. Once you have understood that, the journey is over. And therefore, here we have to apply the 5 principles of consciousness, which we normally have been applying in the Bhagavad Gita to what? To matter. So you have to apply these principles of consciousness to existence also. And you have to say that Sat, the existence, is not a part of the body, is not a property of the body, is not a product of the body. You have to say the existence is an independent entity lending existence to the body, lending existence and consciousness to the body. It is not limited by the boundaries, time-wise boundaries and space-wise boundaries of the body. The existence principle will not go away when the body dies. And lastly, that existence principle needs a reflecting medium to be recognized. And therefore, in the absence of the body, one cannot recognize that existence principle. So you cannot objectify any of them. The Atma cannot be seen and cannot be experienced also. You, the experiencer, can never become the experienced object. All that is required is that I should claim Sat Chit Atma as my true nature. Remember that the word Atma Anubhava, very often used in scripture, does not mean that you have experienced Atma. It simply means that you are claiming yourself as Atma. And the other name for that process is Nididhyasana. So here the author says that consciousness and existence, they are the same. They refer to one entity, and therefore they cannot have a subject-object relationship. And therefore Sat is Chit and Chit is Sat. Consciousness is existence, existence is consciousness, and all that it pervades matter. And I exist in the form of that non-material consciousness existence principle. I am that non-material consciousness existence principle which pervades the Panchakoshas, which pervades the Shariratrayam, making them alive and function. So by my very existence, by my pervading these bodies, I make them existence. Because of me, the Panchakosha is alive and kicking. Because of me, the very Panchabhutas are existent. This knowledge is called Atmajnanam. The whole world depends on me for its very own existence. And the idea that I am dependent upon the world should be dropped immediately. So that is what Ramana Maharshi is saying. We are reaching the pinnacle of Vedantic teaching. Now we look at the next verse, verse number 24. So please unmute yourself. Isha jivayor veshadhi bhida.
Isha jivayor veshadhi bhida.
Sat svabhavata vastu kevalam.
Sat svabhavata vastu kevalam.
Okay, so look at the words Isha, Jivayoho. So that is Isha and Jiva, two entities are there. Therefore, Jivayoho, indicating the dual case. Isha Jivayoho, Vesha Dhi Bhidaha. And Sat Swabhavataha Vastu Kevalam. So Isha Jivayoho, between Jiva and Isha, between Paramatma and Jivatma, what is there? Bhida. What is the difference? Veshadhi Bhida. There is difference only with regarding to the Vesham. So Vesham is what? Vesham is the clothes. And we can think of, when we say clothes here, we have to talk about what? What is the clothes referring to?
The Upadesha.
To the Upadhi, what we call the reflecting medium in Tattvabodha. So Isha Jivayoho Veshadhi Vida. Between Jivatma and Paramatma, remember the only difference is with respect to the operating medium, the reflecting medium, which we call the Upadis. The Jiva has individual three bodies, individual Panchakoshas. The Paramatma has the Samashti, three bodies. And then he says, Sat Swabhavataha. That existence and consciousness principle, being of the nature of pure existence, Sat Swabhavatava, Vastu Kevalam, is only one Vastu only. There is only one Vastu, which is Sat Swabhavatava, nature of pure existence, and you have to add consciousness also. So the essence of this particular verse is the explanation of the Mahavakyam, Tattvamasi. You are that. The Aikyam between Isha and Jivaha means the Aikyam between Jivatma and Paramatma is being explained here by pointing out that there is a superficial difference only. That superficial difference pertains to the Upadis, to the reflecting medium, to the operating medium. It has nothing to do with the essence, which is pure consciousness alone. And to explain this Tattvamasi, Shankaracharya has written a text called Vakya Vritti. Entire text is there. So this Tattvamasi is a Mahavakya sloka. And any Mahavakyam, remember, what does it point out? Any statement which points out the identity between Jivatma and Paramatma, which says that Jivatma and Paramatma are not different. So Jivatma, Paramatma, Aikyam, Bodhaka Vakyam. Any Vakyam, any statement which gives you the understanding that Jivatma and Paramatma are not different, they are the same. That is called a Mahavakyam. So this entire verse can be taken as a Mahavakyam. So this Satchit Ananda, which I have claimed as my real nature, and I have to claim the second part of it. That Anand, I am that Satchit Ananda, I am that Paramatma. And therefore Jivatma and Paramatma are essentially one Ekatma. Right? Their differences depend upon the reflecting medium. When that consciousness is reflected in the individual three bodies, in the individual reflecting medium, it is called Jivatma. When the same consciousness is reflected in the Samashti, in the universal three bodies, it is called Paramatma. Obviously, when you say Jivatma is equal to Paramatma, you have to write Vyashti Shariram, which is the micro bodies plus OC, is equal to Samashti Shariram, the macro bodies plus OC. To understand this, you have to drop the Vyashti Shariram, you have to drop the Samashti Shariram, and you will come to the understanding OC is equal to OC, Atma is equal to Brahman, Jivatma is equal to Paramatma. This is called the Lakshyartha of the particular Mahavakya. What is the Vachyartham? The Vachyartham is the literal meaning. So if you take the literal meaning of Jivatma, what does it mean? It means the consciousness reflected in the individual three bodies. That is Vachyartham. If you take Vachyartham of Paramatma, consciousness reflected in the universal three bodies. From the Vachyartham point of view, remember Jivatma and Paramatma can never be equated. Why? Because one aspect of the equation, Vyashti Shariram, is vastly inferior to the Samashti Shariram. And therefore, when you drop one part of it, the implied meaning you take. The implied meaning is called the Lakshyartham. The Lakshyartham is Jivatma is equal to consciousness, Paramatma is equal to consciousness. And from that implied meaning point of view, from the Lakshyartha point of view, Jivatma is equal to Paramatma. And this is what Ramana Maharshi is saying in this 24th verse. Jivatma is no different from Paramatma. The operating media are different, but the operating Atma, the OC, is the same. And Jiva and Parama are like the dress which you put on, the adjectives. What is the noun over here? Atma. So Jiva is an adjective qualifying Atma, which is, and the dress here is the individual three bodies. Parama is the adjective qualifying the noun Atma, when the dress is the samashti three bodies. And he says, Sat Swabhavaha. Ultimately, the nature is Sat alone and Chit alone. And Kevalam. Kevalam is Ekam, non-dual, Nirguna. Kevalam Vastu, the reality. So when you look casually, you will see Jivatma and Paramatma as vastly different, because you are seeing the Vesham only. You are seeing the bodies only. But as Krishna says in the 11th chapter, use your third eye, your Jnana Chakshu you use, eye of knowledge. You will be able to see past the bodies and you will see the essence, which is the Atma. Okay, let us look at the 25th verse. So please chant with me. Veshahanataha swatma darshanam.
Veshahanatah swatmadarshanam
Isha darshanam swatma rupataha.
Ishadarshanam swatmarupataha.
Okay. So what are the words? Vesha hanataha swatma darshanam. So you have to learn to spot the way the words can be broken up. Then it becomes easy. So Vesha hanataha swatma darshanam. Isha darshanam swatma rupataha. What does it mean? Vesha hanataha. Hanam is destruction or removal. Vesha hanataha. When the dress, the Vesham, which are the operating medium, the Upadis, they are removed. And Vesham here includes the Samashti Vesham and the Vyashti Vesham. The micro and the macro limitations, operating media, when they are removed, when the micro Upadi as well as the macro Upadi is removed, what happens? Swatma Darshanam. A person will understand Swarupam Eka Atma Jnanam. Swatma Darshanam. We will understand his own nature. Swatma means my own darshanam. I will know my own nature. And very beautifully he adds, Isha darshanam. This Swatma darshanam, which is the understanding of your own nature, is nothing but Isha darshanam. That alone is the vision of Ishvara. And what is the vision of Ishvara? Swatma rupataha. That Ishvara is nothing but you. This is the Aikyam part. He's saying you have to first drop the Vesham, Veshahanataha. Mentally eliminate the Vesham. So physically you cannot drop the body, right? So mentally you have to remove the body from the equation. And then what is left? The Atma is left. Consciousness principle is left. The Sat and Chit are left on both the sides, because mentally you have dropped what? You have dropped the micro body, the Vesham for the Vyashti has been dropped, and the macro body, the Vesham for the Samashti has been dropped. What remains is only the consciousness principle that you are seeing, and that is Swatma Darshanam. And that Swatma Darshanam is nothing but the vision of Ishvara itself, himself. And that vision of Ishvara is in what form? Swatma Rupataha, as your own self. So this Hanataha comes from Han Dhatu. Han Dhatu is to remove or destroy, so indicating Jivatma Paramatma Aikyam. And Isha Darshanam, the Darshanam of the Lord, is nothing but Swatma Darshanam, is nothing but Darshanam of Atma. So Darshanam here, don't think of it as perceiving, not seeing. It's not perceiving, it's not seeing, it is understanding. It is an intellectual recognition only. So Isha Darshanam, intellectual recognition of the Lord, is not different from Swatma Darshanam, intellectual understanding of Atma, Swatma Atma Rupataha. That Lord has to be understood as not different from myself. At the same time, I should know that the medium through which I operate, with the Jivatma operates, is an inferior medium. The medium through which Paramatma operates is a superior medium. As long as the medium are there in the equation, as long as the RMs, the reflecting media, are there in the equation, it is not possible for us to make an equation over there, right? What you have to do is remove the media, then the essential nature of both is the same Atma. Just give me a minute, there's somebody at the door. Sorry. So you remove the media, then the essential nature of both is the one and the same Atma. The media are different. The RM, the Vyashti RM is inferior to the Samashti RM. But the Atma is neither superior nor inferior. That's why Nirguna Chaitanyam, Atma without attributes. And Atma Darshanam is being explained further in the next two verses. So we will read verse number 26. Please unmute yourself. Atma Samsthiti Swatma Darshanam.
Atma-samsthiti swatma-darshanam.
Atma Nirdvayam Atma Nishtata.
Atma-nirdvayam atma-nishtata.
Okay, so Atma Samsthitihi Swatma Darshanam. Atma Nirdvayat Atma Nishtata. He says Atma Nirdvayat. Since the Atma is Advayam, Nirdvayam means Dvayam is dualistic, dual. Nirdvayam is the same as Advayam. So since the Atma is non-dual, Atma Samsthitihi, when you abide in your own self, Samsthiti is abiding in, staying with one's own self. So Atma Samsthitihi, when you abide in your own self, Swatma Darshanam, that itself is the vision of Swatma, of your own Atma. And also Atma Nishtata, this is also called Nishtha, fixing oneself in Atma. So Atma, two words are being used. Atma Samsthitihi, abiding in oneself, is the same as Atma Nishtata, Atma Nishtha, Jnana Nishtha, it is the same thing. And this is nothing but Swatma Darshanam, the vision of your own self. So Atma Darshanam and Atma Samsthitihi, knowledge of the Atma is nothing but abiding in the Atma as the Atma. Remember, this is not an object of experience. It is abiding in the Atma. That's why he says Swatma Darshanam Atma Nishtha. It is abiding in the Atma. And how is it abiding? Atma Nirdvayat. Because Atma is non-dual, is Advayam, there is no division of subject and object. And therefore, since there is no division of subject and object, and that Atma is myself only, that Atma cannot be known by someone else. So there are questions people ask. Can Atma know Atma? Can one Atma know another Atma? Can Anatma know Atma? Can Atma know itself? All these questions have one basic fundamental misconception. What? That knowledge is in the form of knowing something, that there is a subject knowing the object. That's why he says Eka Atma knowledge is not like any other type of knowledge. In any knowledge other than Atma Jnanam, there is always the Jnata, the Jnanam, and the Jnayam. There is the Pramata, the knower. There is the Pramanam, the instrument of knowledge. And there is the Prameyam, the object of knowledge. This is called Triputi. It is duality. There is a subject-object relationship there in any form of knowledge excepting Atma Jnanam. Why is this not possible with Atma Jnanam? Because the subject, Atma, is itself the object of knowledge. And therefore, the subject-object duality cannot exist in Atma Jnanam. And therefore, you can never say that I know Atma or I have experienced Atma. The moment somebody says I've experienced Atma, or if he is looking for the experience of Brahman or Atma, you can be sure that he has not understood what is Brahman, what is Atma. So Swatma Darshanam, here is Atma Jnanam. And because of this, the statement that we made, saying that Atma cannot be experienced at all, remember that Atma Jnanam, or rather understanding yourself as Brahman, the Brahman status. The Brahman status is not something which is going to happen at a particular time, in a particular place, or in the future. The Brahman status is always there. That's why he says Swatma Darshana. That self-experience is learning to abide in the understanding that Aham Eka Atma Asmi. I am this non-dual Atma. That understanding is called abidance. A lot of us feel, what do you mean when you say Jnana Nishtha? What do you mean when you say abidance in the self, abidance in the Atma? This is the abidance, the understanding and the constant remembrance that I am that Eka Atma. I am that non-dual Brahman. I am neither Jivatma, I am not Paramatma, but I am Nirguna Chaitanyam, pure Atma, having no Jiva attribute, having no Parama attribute, because the Jiva and Parama gunas, they belong to the reflecting medium only. Abiding in this manner is Atma Nishthatha. Only one dual non-Atma. That Atma is the witness, ever the witness, can never become an object of observations. Okay, what is more? You can never become Atma in inverted commas. And if you can never become Atma, remember that you can never get moksha, because moksha is not something which can come in the future. And the correct understanding of Vedanta, when a student really understands Vedanta, what does he do? He stops looking for moksha, because he knows that moksha is an ever-present reality. Why? Because moksha is another name for Brahman, another name for Atma. And if I am Atma, it is not that I became Atma today morning or after I finished Upanishad class. I was Atma, I am Atma, and I will continue to be Atma. That is the ever-present reality. Having understood that is the real understanding of Shastram, and the person who understands that, he stops being a sadhaka. As long as you are a sadhaka, as long as you are a student, you have not understood that Brahman is an ever-present reality. Okay, any questions? All right, so we'll go to verse number 27. Please unmute yourself. Jnanavarjita jnanahina chit.
Jnanavarjita jnanahina chitta.
Jnanamastikim gyatumantaram.
Jnanamasti kim
Jnanamasti kim
jnanamantam.
Okay, so jnana varjita, the avagraha there has to be dropped, so it becomes ajnana hinaha. Jnana varjita ajnana hinaha chit, then jnanam asti kim jnatum antaram. What breakups? And ajnana hina chit. Ajnana hina chit. Chit, the Atma is in the nature of chit, which is consciousness principle, and therefore ajnana hina, always free of ajnana. So ajnana hina chit. The consciousness principle is the very essence of the Atma. So the Atma can never be ignorant, it is always free of ignorance. And if you are always free of ignorance, a very interesting phrase uses jnana varjita. There can be never any arrival of jnana. So he is explaining what I said in the last verse, that there is no question of jnanam arriving, in the sense there is no question of Brahman arriving or Atma arriving, because Atma is by nature consciousness principle. And because it is the nature of awareness, the nature of knowledge, you will never be, you will never be enveloped with ignorance. And if you have no ignorance, jnana varjita, where is the question of the arrival of jnanam at a particular time or place? So he says, kim antaram jnanam asti jnatum. Is there a second knower? Jnanam asti. Is there a second knower? Kim antaram, other than the Atma, Gyatum, who will know the Atma. Is there a second knower other than consciousness to know the Atma? So what does it mean? Consciousness alone is Atma Jnanam, we said. Okay. Now, when we say consciousness alone is Atma Jnanam, we have to carefully remember all the other classes, other explanations of Vedanta that we have done. And remember that when OC is associated with a thought, in this case, the Aham Brahmasmi thought. So consciousness has to be associated with Aham Brahmasmi Vritti. Okay. And this Aham Brahmasmi Vritti arises out of a study of the Shastra. So when you say Jnanam Asti, Chiteva Jnanam Asti, when you say consciousness alone is knowledge, you have to remember that consciousness associated with the Aham Brahmasmi Vritti, that is knowledge. Then only consciousness is knowledge. Okay. It does not mean that automatically everybody has Atma Jnana. Because you are saying Chit Eva Jnanam Asti. And Chit is there in everybody, consciousness is there in everybody. And if consciousness itself is Atma Jnanam, then every human being has got Atma Jnanam. And that is not what it means. You have to carefully add consciousness associated with the Aham Brahmasmi thought. That consciousness, then only that consciousness is said to be same as Atma Jnanam. And then he talks about the nature of the original consciousness. Chit ajnana hinaha. Consciousness principle is devoid of any ignorance. Jnana varjitaha is devoid of all jnanam also. Okay. Two things he has said. Chit ajnana hinaha. Consciousness is devoid of ignorance. Jnana varjitaha also. Devoid of jnanam also. So this consciousness principle is devoid of ignorance and devoid of jnanam. It does not have either ignorance nor does it have jnanam. Meaning what? Original consciousness is beyond jnanam and ajnanam. Why? Because both jnanam and ajnanam need what? They need the mind. And the mind is in anatma only. And original consciousness, the Atma, is different from Anatma. So we say, Chit Ajnana Hina Jnana Varjita. That original consciousness is devoid of ignorance, does not have any ignorance, and does not have any Jnanam also, because it is beyond Anatma. Both Jnanam and Ajnanam, the locus is the mind, which is the RM. The RC has Jnanam and Ajnanam. The OC does not have either. Why is this so? Antaram gyatum kimasti. Is there any other way of knowing the Atma? So that's what we said. Anatma cannot know consciousness. Why? Because anything inert cannot know anything. So Jadam cannot know consciousness. One chit cannot know another chit because there is no another chit. One part of chit cannot know any other part of chit because chit is partless, and certainly chit cannot know itself. So if you look at all the ways, antaram gyatum kim asti, what other way of knowing Atma is there other than the only possibility is I am this Atma. That is what is meaning. Antaram gyatum kim asti. There is no other way of knowing Atma excepting in the form I am Atma, Aham Brahma Asmi, I am Chaitanyam. That is the nature, that is the only way that one can know Atma. Remember, the nature of Atma is consciousness principle, which makes one a conscious being. And the fact that I am conscious being, I am, that fact is ever experienced by everybody all the time. There is nobody who does not know that I am, that I exist. You don't require to do any sadhana for that. It is experienced by everybody. And since it is experienced by everybody, nobody is ever ignorant of consciousness principle. Since there is no ignorance of the consciousness principle, you don't need any knowledge to know that you are conscious. And therefore, he's saying there is no question of getting Atma Anubhava. The nature of the Atma is the ever experienced consciousness, and therefore I am never ignorant of the Atma. And since I have no ignorance, there is no question of arrival of Jnanam as an event. Okay, so here you have to take Jnanam as experience. Since there is no ignorance, I do not have to wait for arrival of experience as an event, because I will never experience the Atma. Why? Because Anubhava is relevant only when there is absence of Anubhava. What is the Anubhava here? I am conscious. That experience everybody has. That knowledge everybody has. And since I am conscious and known to me, where is the question of my wanting to experience that consciousness? It is known to me already. That is why we say, do not wait for Atma Anubhava. What is the problem then? The problem then is that I have taken the gunas, the attributes of the body and the mind as my real self. What is my real self? My real self is the Atma. But what did I do? I have mistakenly taken the attributes of the body and the mind, and I have superimposed them upon the real me, the Atma, and therefore now I experience myself with all the limitations of those finite attributes of the body-mind complex. What is to be done? I have to remove the attributes with which I have covered myself, the Atma. All I need is to remove Ajnanam. And therefore, Vedantic study is not to help you to know Atma. It is to help you to remove all these attributes and reveal the real I am, which was always there. And once you are able to understand that this consciousness I am, then all that is left is to constantly abide as I am. The entire Vedantic study, remember, is not to gain experience. It is just to remove the false attributes which I have put over my real self. So if I am able to stop at I am and not go further, I am doctor, I am lawyer, I am teacher, I must stop at I am. Vedantic study is to remove every attribute after I am and leave you only with I am. Okay, so that is what he is saying. So it's for 20 minutes more. Let us quickly see if we can finish up the text today. Verse number 28. Kim swarupame tyatma darshane
किं स्वरूपमेत् आत्मदर्शनेन
अव्यया भवा पूर्णचित् सुखम.
अव्यया भवा पूर्णचित् सुखम्.
Okay. So Kim Swarupam iti, to break it carefully. Kim Swarupam iti Atma Darshane Avyaya Abhava. It's not Bhava. Avyaya Abhava Purna Chit Sukham. Okay. Kim Swarupam. What is the nature? Atma Darshane, of the Atma. So iti, that iti means enquiring in this manner. If you enquire, iti is a word saying that this is the way you should enquire. So kim swarupam Atma Darshane iti. What is the nature of the Atma? If you enquire, what will you find? Atma is avyaya abhava, deathless, avyaya, changeless, deathless, abhavaha, never born. It is beyond death. It is beyond birth also. What is its nature then? Purna Chit Sukham. Limitless. Purnam is limitless. Chit is consciousness. Sukham is Ananda. You have to supply the Sat existence also. So we will find that that Atma is nothing but limitless existence, consciousness, and Ananda. So here he adds another dimension of Ananda. So we have discussed what so far, that Atma is the essential nature of Jivatma as well as Paramatma. We have said Atma is Satrupam, the non-material existence principle, which was in verse number 20. And we said that Atma is also Chitrupam, a non-material consciousness principle. We said that in verse number 27. So normally we define Atma as Sat, Chit and Ananda. So Sat is taken care of, Chit is taken care of. Here he adds the important aspect of Ananda Swarupam. Rounding off the definition, the real nature is of Atma is Sat, Chit and Ananda. So according to Vedanta scriptures, Shastram says, there is no Ananda anywhere excepting in the Atma. You cannot get happiness from any source in this world excepting from Atma, which is your own self. It is a very potent statement, because the whole life, all of us spend chasing objects and events for Ananda. And Shastra says all that is with a lot of foolishness, because there is only one source, and that source inside you, you are that Atma. Only that Atma has Ananda. How do I know that I am the source of Ananda? So because, if I eat strawberry ice cream, I become happy. And therefore I think that I got Ananda from eating strawberry ice cream, which is a source outside me. Scripture describes this. Vedanta says this is not the case. When you experience an object which you like, which is the strawberry ice cream, what is happening? Because you are experiencing an object which you are fond of, this is the ideal condition for your mind to be calm. And therefore the mind will get into a calm and sattvic condition. In that calm and sattvic mind, the Ananda which belongs to your Atma is reflected. It is not that you are gaining happiness from the strawberry ice cream, but because you like that strawberry ice cream, because you think that that strawberry ice cream is giving me Ananda, your mind has quietened down, has become sattvic, as long as you are eating the ice cream. And therefore, the original Atma Ananda which is there in you, that is now reflected in that quiet, calm, sattvic mind. And the Ananda which you think you are getting from that ice cream is nothing but manifesting the Ananda which is already inside. The strawberry ice cream is the reflecting medium, manifesting, reflecting the Atma Ananda. That Ananda is brought out as a reflection in your mind. The strawberry ice cream has triggered that. And the reflected Ananda is what we are experiencing. So we often give the example for this, A dog picks up a very dry bone on the beach, let us say, and that bone has been lying there for several months and it's dry without any flesh, no blood, nothing. The dog bites into the bone, breaks the bone, and the sharp edges of the bone, they injure the inside of the dog's mouth, drawing blood. And the dog tastes that blood and thinks that it is coming from the bone, and therefore it bites the bone more, cutting itself more and drawing more blood. It is not the blood from the bone the dog is tasting. It is its own blood, but not knowing that it continues to bite the bone. The example is exact. Not knowing that the Ananda is only mine, I continue to run after external objects. Not understanding the Atma Ananda is internal and not external. The external objects trigger it, they help to manifest it. And that Atmananda, when the mind is quietened down, when it is appropriately conditioned, it reflects the Atmananda. But we have not understood that it is Atmananda, so we wrongly attribute that Ananda to the object. And therefore, when Ramana says, inquire into the Atma, you will discover that Atma is Sat Chit Ananda Swarupa. It is avyayam, deathless, abhavam, birthless, permanent sukham, not subject to arrival and departure. While material bliss, material happiness is called apekshika sukham, relative sukham, subject to arrival and departure. And when you take all this together, avyayam, that is deathless, birthless, and permanent sukham, it means eternal, limitless. So you have to remember that whenever I am enjoying any happiness, I have to understand very carefully that it is my own Atma Ananda being reflected, being triggered by something external. Ananda principle is like the heat principle, right? The heat you can never experience, excepting if you got a reflecting medium. If you put your finger in the heat, then you experience the heat. If you stand in front of the heat, your body is the reflecting medium. But otherwise, the heat of the fire, there is no way of experiencing. And therefore, it is called the heat principle. Heat principle cannot be experienced unless there is a reflecting medium. Similarly, the Atma Ananda, which is the Ananda principle, cannot be experienced unless there is a reflecting medium. Okay. Then verse number 29. Bandhamuktyatītam param sukham.
Bandhamuktyatītam
param sukham. Vindati hajivastu daivikaha.
Vindati hajivastu daivikaha.
Okay. So bandha mukta param sukham. Bandha mukta atitam param sukham. Vindati iha jiva tu daivikaha. So bandha mukta atitam param sukham. Vindati jiva tu daivikaha. Vindati iha jiva tu daivikaha. So look at this second line first. Tu jivaha. But that individual jiva, vindati, he attains, he realizes. Daivikaha. Daivikaha means all the divine virtues which we talked about in Bhagavad Gita. And because of that, param sukham, infinite sukham he gets, infinite happiness he gets. And what kind of happiness is that? Bandha mukti athitam. That happiness is beyond bandham, beyond, athita means beyond. Bandha athitam, beyond bondage. Mukti athitam, beyond liberation also. And where does he get it? Iha, in this world itself. So, tu jivaha, that jiva, with daivikaha. So, daivikaha is daivi sampatti of Bhagavad Gita. Vindati param sukham, attains the supreme happiness, which is bandha mukti atitam iha. That Atma Ananda is the infinite Ananda, a non-experiential Ananda, which is myself alone. And it is beyond bondage and liberation. So when this Vedantic student discovers that I am the Atma, he understands what? That he was the Atma all the time, free all the time. And therefore, Bandha Mukta Atitaha. There is no question of being bound. There is no question of getting mukti also. Because I was the Atma all the time. I did not know I was the Atma. So I thought I was in bondage and therefore I had to get moksha. But now I know that I am the Atma. I was the Atma that time also. I was the Atma now also. And I will continue to be the Atma. Where is the question of bondage or freedom? When the idea of bandha, bondage goes away, then the necessity of liberation also goes away, right? You need to be free only if you are bound. So since bandha was not there, he understands, he also drops the idea of moksha also. And this gives a very important definition of moksha. Moksha is dropping the idea that you are bound, that you are bandha. You don't have to break the bondage. You have to just drop the idea that you are bound. And he says here that only a person with Daiva Sampatti, all those virtues which Krishna outlined in Bhagavad Gita, lots of virtues have been outlined. You need to develop those virtues. In short, you have to be sadhana chatushtaya sampannaha. Then only you will get Atma Ananda here and now. We come to the last verse. So let us stand that. Ahamapetakam nija vibhanakam.
Ahamapetakam nijavibhanakam
Mahadidam tapo ramana vagiyam.
Mahadidam pato Ramavakiyavam.
Okay, so that is the last verse, and let us look at it, the words again. Aham apetakam nija vibhanakam mahat idam tapaha ramana vagiyam. So mahat idam tapaha ramana vagiyam. So aham apetakam. Apetakam is remover. So aham apetakam. Aham here is ahankara, the ego. So aham apetakam, that which is the remover of the ahankara, nija vibhanakam, and that in which this real I, vibhanakam, shines or is evident. Nija is I, so in which the real I, which is the consciousness principle, which is vibhanakam, it shines. What is that? Mahad idam tapaha. It is this knowledge. Idam means this knowledge, this Vedantic knowledge. Mahat tapaha, which is the greatest tapas you can do. Studying the Shastram, he says, is the greatest tapas you can do. And who was this? In the last two words, Ramana Vagyam means this Upadesha Saram has been composed by Ramana Maharishi. So Mahad itam tapa, this greatest tapas, which is Nija Vibhanakam, revealing the real I, the Atma, and that knowledge, which is the tapas, Aham apetakam, it frees a person. Apetakam means freeing. So freeing a person from ahankara. Ramana Vagyam. So Ramana Vagyam is, of course, Ramana wrote these 30 verses. If you remember the Bhagavad Gita, Jnana Tapasa Puta, purified by Jnanam. Self-knowledge is the greatest form of austerity, the greatest form of tapas. Why? Because it removes ignorance and gives moksha. And in this type of knowledge, ahankara is eliminated. The moment ahankara is eliminated, what happens? The moment RC is gone, what is left? OC. The moment RC is gone, the OC is clearly visible. And this text is the composition of Ramana Maharishi. This teaching itself is the entire Vedic teaching. In fact, this one small 30 verses has covered very briefly everything, all the sadhanas, self-inquiry it has covered, and it has covered the jnana phalam also, the benefit of knowledge also. With this, we will close this text as well as the class. Any questions?
Sir, Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Sir, can you once share the virtues of described by Sri Krishna?
You'll have to wait for the class. It's very long. It takes
Yeah,
several
that's what
hours
was
to it. There's no point in just enumerating those virtues, because it will take several hours to go through.
Yeah. Actually, I observed, sir, when the mind and the body is calm, contemplation is easy.
Yeah,
But when you don't sleep at night, or let's say you have disturbances and you get attached to those disturbances, contemplation is very difficult.
Okay, so Meera has asked, which are the
Yes, sir.
three universal bodies? Can anybody
Very
reply?
elementary.
What are the three? Samashti Shariram is what?
Virat, Hiranyagarbha,
Antaryami.
Paryami.
But sir, those are the consciousness which are associated with the names given to the consciousness associated with RM4, RM5, RM6.
Correct. So what is RM4, 5, and 6?
Yes, that is what my question was.
Hey, what is RM4, 5, and 6? Tell me.
the Vyashti universe, the manifested universe.
The three universes, which are those?
You guys need to
three
revise
universal
Tattva Bodha
bodies.
again and again and again, okay?
Very elementary, sir.
Three.
I know.
Three universal bodies. At the gross samashti level, it is Virat. At the Sukshma samashti
Virat
level,
is the
No.
RM plus the OC.
Oh, see.
She's asking about only the RMs.
Mhm.
oh,
Sir, the Sthula Prapancha, Sukshma Prapancha, and Karana Prapancha.
That's it. The gross physical universe, subtle physical
Okay.
universe, subtle universe, and Karana universe, causal universe. As simple as that. The same three bodies which you have, aggregate the bodies of all the living beings, and what do you get? You get
Okay, okay.
samashti.
I got it. Yes, sir.
Okay, there is no
Sir,
physical universe different from you, and every body you add together, that will give you the physical
Yes, sir.
universe. Similarly, you add every subtle body together, and that gives you the subtle universe. As simple as that.
Yes, sir.
Very elementary
Understood.
stuff.
Yes, sir. It is. So there is one more question from the verse 21. We learned that during Jagrut and Sushupti Avastha, I have limited eye experience. So I couldn't understand that.
Jagrata Avastha is full experience. How do you say limited experience?
That is that I have the experience that I am limited.
Yeah, you are limited, are you not?
Yeah.
Can
Yes.
can you create a universe tomorrow morning? You can't.
No.
So that is a sense of limitation.
And in Sushupti Avastha?
Sushupti Avastha, do you know that I am a girl? That I've got one leg less, or I got one eye less, or I was suffering from headache in the morning? Do you know all those things? Sushupti
No.
Avastha, you are not aware of anything. And therefore, if you are not
Okay.
aware of anything, your limitations are not there, because the mind is not there. All limitations are in the mind alone. If your mind is not
Okay.
available, where is the limitation available? So in Sushupti Avastha, you are
Okay.
infinite. You are basically, the only thing you know is that, and if you remember Tattva Bodha, what do they give us definition of Sushupti? Again, I'll come back to Tattva Bodha. You have to remember Tattva Bodha to understand any Vedantic text. What is definition of Sushupti in Tattva Bodha?
When the mind completely
Dissolved.
No.
And you can't recall any
There is
transaction
a
or
very
experience.
specific definition given in Tattva
dream
Bodha.
state.
It says, Aham kim na
Aham
janami.
kimapi na janami.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Aham kim api na janami. I do not know anything. And
Hmm.
what else?
Sukhena maya nidra.
Sukhena maya nidra.
Transaction.
I slept very well. I was
Okay.
happy. And therefore, two things you know, that I don't know anything. And since you don't know anything, you don't know that you have problems, which means your mind is not there. That is why you don't know anything. In that,
Okay.
your mind resolving makes you at par with Paramatma. Because Paramatma, of course, in that sense, Paramatma has a bigger mind than all of us. But if you take Atma, Atma has no mind. So when your mind is resolved, then the Jiva part of you is gone. So now you are Atma.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Okay. So
Thank
with
you.
this,
Thank you, sir.
any other questions?
Yeah, I had a question. Now, a very beautiful text. Thank you so much for giving us the knowledge about this text. But we all know that we are in Jagrat Avastha and we consider this as body and things like that. So what are the things that you would be able to guide us that we understand Aham Brahmasmi even more, and we start practicing it as well in our daily life? What are the few things that we can do?
No, few things. You have to assimilate the concept that, if I call you in the night at 1 o'clock in the night and say, hello, you should not say Lata here. What should you say?
Aham Brahmasmi.
Aham Brahmasmi. When you do that,
Yeah.
then you have understood.
Okay.
So that
Thank you.
the idea is that the normal thought that I am so and so should be replaced with Aham Brahma. You need not tell that to the world, right? You don't need to get up in the morning and tell your children that, ma'am, I'm the Lord. They'll laugh at you. But what? Your internal dialogue should be that I am the Lord. With the external world, you can continue to be mother and sister and wife. Internally, I am the Lord is a mental chatter which you have. That is, I am the Lord.
Correct.
So don't worry about it. I mean, we are going to take up in these evening classes, we're going to take up text after text, because I just figured out that, Gita is all right, Upanishad is all right, but you guys need a very strong dose of basic Vedanta. Okay, so
Yes, sir.
because basic Vedanta is what enables us to understand the rest of the texts. So next session onwards, I plan to, introduce a text called Vedanta Sara, the essence of Vedanta. Somewhere during the course of the week, I'll send you the text. Again, the text is basically what I have typed. So it's only the Sanskrit and the transliteration. There are no meanings, nothing in the text. You'll have to listen to the classes. If you need to, if you need a book, then there are some books which I can recommend. They're available.
That'll be very kind.
I would, basically say that if you want the text, you buy it, but listen to the classes and then try to correlate that to the text. Then it will be okay.
Yes, sir.
Don't read the text like a storybook and then come back and saying, but it said so and so. No, don't say that. Just read 1 or 2 verses at a time, because it's a very heavy text. Okay.
Yes.
So thank you for your patience.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purna
Purnamudachyate
Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sat. Om Namah Shivaya. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you so much, sir.